welcome to this edition of Border Report Live. My name is Rudy Mireles, and I am your host here in Harlingen, Texas, in the Rio Grande Valley of deep South Texas. Got a great program lined up for you today. In just a bit, our South Texas correspondent, Sandra Sanchez, and we'll have a conversation that we pre-recorded with Aaron Reichlin-Melnick of the American Immigration Council. Always a very good data-driven episode when Aaron's on the program, so we're looking forward to that conversation coming up in just a few moments. But as always, let's first take a look at what's trending across the border, starting with a large group of migrants being held for ransom by smugglers were rescued by police in Juarez, Mexico. Now, according to reports, 18 adults were found locked up in a stash house west of downtown earlier this week. Chihuahua State Police officers visited the home after surveillance cameras recorded suspicious activity, including the continuous dropping off of people. Now, the officers found 13 people from Ecuador, Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador inside. 5 Mexican citizens were also let out of that stash house. Now, the migrants were taken to a police station where they received medical screening. No arrests had been reported as of Tuesday afternoon. Last month, police rescued nearly 24 migrants from another stash house, and we have all of that reporting available to you live right now on BorderReport.com, where all of our reporting goes that you see on this program, and some of the stuff we unfortunately have to cut due to time. So if you're ever wanting to know more or go a little bit deeper into the story, BorderReport.com is the place to visit. Also happening across the border, a federal judge has ordered the Trump administration to stop deploying California National Guard troops in Los Angeles. Now, this morning, the judge granted a preliminary injunction sought by California officials to end the deployment and return the 100 or so remaining troops back to the state's command. But he also put that decision on hold until Monday. Now, this summer, the Trump administration ordered the deployment of thousands of troops to L.A. over Governor Newsom's objections. Governor Newsom and other California officials argued conditions in Los Angeles had changed since then. The administration said the remaining Guard members were needed to help protect federal personnel and property. And unlike Democratic-run states like California and Illinois, which opposed President Donald Trump's immigration crackdown, Louisiana leaders welcome the help from federal agents. But as News Nation's Xavier Walton tells us, the ICE raids are still shocking people who live in the nearby areas. Watch.
This massive immigration crackdown underway in New Orleans now has local police officially joining forces with ICE in the operation coined Catahoula Crunch after the Louisiana State Dog involves more than 20 law enforcement agencies and about 250 or so federal immigration officers targeting undocumented immigrants with criminal records. Now, those raids are sending shock waves through communities. The ripple effect certainly being felt. Businesses have closed and many parents are too afraid to send their kids to school. We're going to get to that later, but local police are now authorized to help enforce federal immigration laws. A move advocates like immigration attorneys warn could change how stops and searches are actually handled. Got a police chief, Keith Conley, says this, it'll improve public safety, and 15 of his officers are or will be certified soon.
We're here to aid them, to assist them. We have assisted in some confrontations, but, it is a godsend for our community, and I'm going to use whatever tools I can to keep my community safe. As an elected police chief, I have a pulse on the community, and the Border Patrol is very welcome here by this community.
Chief Conley says his department will move forward, quote, carefully and also professionally as federal agents kind of expand their footprint, if you will, across the region. But right now, one of the biggest warning signs is school attendance, and you could actually track that. Data from Jefferson Parish shows thousands of students stayed home last week at Tarrytown Elementary. You see it here, 79% of students are Hispanic, 41% were absent on Monday alone. Mayor-elect Helena Moreno, who immigrated from Mexico as a child, you know what? She's demanding transparency and compassion. She wants agents clearly identified and not to wear masks while operating in the city.
We are requesting regular public briefings from federal agencies. Without this full visibility into these enforcement actions, it is impossible to determine whether this particular operation is actually targeting the most dangerous offenders.
So right now, there's no sign of the operation slowing down. Meantime, communities remain on edge to a degree. And despite heavy criticism, the National Democratic leaders have been largely quiet as of late, uncertain of how to respond next. Meantime, as federal officials, they vow to take enforcement to the next level. In Dallas, Xavier Walton, News Nation.
And thank you for your reporting on that, Xavier. One interesting note that we saw in that report by Xavier Walton from News Nation was the mention of school attendance. Now, that is something that we have seen in some of the other places that have had these immigration raids taken place. We saw the numbers of school attendance in the heavy Hispanic communities drop in cities like Chicago and outside of Chicago, as well as in North Carolina, which was a big sticking point for many of the local officials in North Carolina, in Charlotte to be specific. They were asking ICE to leave because a lot of their students weren't making it into the classroom for fear of getting picked up by ICE, either those students themselves or parents dropping off their kids at school. So it's interesting to see that trend definitely develop over time. Now, here in the state of Texas, we recently got enrollment numbers for several school districts all across the state. We'll be taking a look at those statistics and bring you any information that we can glean from them that show any kind of trends that are similar to that of what we saw in Chicago, then we saw in Charlotte, North Carolina, and what we are clearly now seeing in the state of Louisiana as Operation Catahoula Crunch takes effect. Moving on, one more headline to tell you about before we get to the break. An iPhone app that was used to flag sightings of ICE agents is now suing the Trump administration for freedom of speech violations. In October, Apple removed the ICE Block app from its App Store after the U.S. Attorney General said they put ICE agents at risk. The lawsuit from ICE Block app makers argue that the government's actions violated their First Amendment rights. The lawsuit asked for a federal judge to protect the Texas-based software developer from prosecution, alleging unlawful threats made by the U.S. Attorney General, Homeland Security, and other federal officials. Now, our Jorge Vela, one of the reporters here in Harlingen, Texas for KVEO TV, we've had him on the program before as he covers the immigration beat for our local station here in Harlingen, Texas. And he actually had the initial report with the creator of the ICE Block app. We have that live for you now on borderreport.com. All you have to do is go into the search bar and type in ICE Block, and you'll get that reporting and all the reporting that we've done on the ICE Block app since it arrived to the App Store and has since been taken down. So make sure to get over to borderreport.com if you'd like to know more on the ICE Block app today. Well, stay with us because when we come back, our Sandra Sanchez will have that pre-recorded interview with Aaron Reichlin-Melnick of the American Immigration Council. It's a good one. It always is with him. So stay with us. Border Report Live will be back in 2 minutes. Welcome back to this edition of Border Report Live. My name is Rudy Mideles, and I am your host here in Harlingen, Texas, in the Rio Grande Valley of deep South Texas. Aaron Reichlin-Melnick is a senior fellow with the American Immigration Council, and if you've watched Border Report Live before, you've probably seen him on the program before. Well, he recently spoke with our South Texas correspondent Sandra Sanchez about the Trump administration's recent travel ban and restrictions to nationals from 19 countries, as well as the new immigration policies and caps on the amount of refugees that the United States will accept. We have that interview ready for you now. Watch.
Well, right now, we actually don't know that much about what the Trump administration is doing because a lot of their press releases haven't come with details to follow. What we know is that the Trump administration has suspended processing all asylum applications that are pending at U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. These are asylum applications filed by people who are not in the immigration court system, people who are not immediately facing deportation. In addition, the Trump administration has said that it is going to expand vetting of people who come from one of the 19 travel ban countries, which includes countries like Cuba and Venezuela and Haiti. Those people who are applying for benefits inside the United States, such as green cards, will now face new potential denials because they come from those countries, although the government assures people that simply being from one of those countries is not in and of itself a reason to have your application denied. then on top of that, the Trump administration is also suspending all immigration and visa requests for Afghan nationals so that they can supposedly put more vetting measures in place. And they have said that they are going to review over 500,000 green cards, over 200,000 refugee applications, and for people who entered the United States during the Biden administration or got certain legal status during the Biden administration. Now, what that review looks like, we don't know yet.
So let's break it down. You mentioned Haitians, and Haitians had been part of the temporary protected status, and that was taken away. Now they're actually not even allowed to come and apply at all. At the same time, there has been an extension of the refugee asylum applications for those from South Africa and the Afrikaners so it seems like you mentioned Venezuelans, Cubans, Haitians, Afghanistans, people of color. And yet we see an increase in the number of refugees who are allowed to apply from the Afrikaners, which are typically white people. I mean, what is this signaling?
Yeah, so I want to, make a brief correction there, because when we look at Haitian TPS and temporary protected status for Venezuelans it has been terminated. For Haitians, that termination was initially blocked in court and is now set to expire in February of next year. But crucially, Haitians and Venezuelans and others can still apply for benefits. The Trump admin has not banned them from getting benefits, but it is suggesting that it may deny some of those applications solely because of the country they come from. But how that's going to work out yet doesn't know. But the broader point is a good one. We are seeing, especially with the refugee program, the Trump administration say hundreds of thousands of refugees who entered under Biden are inherently suspicious because they think the Biden admin may not have applied appropriate vetting standards and rushed applications through the process. But this administration has completely revamped the refugee program to apply to essentially only white people from South Africa and Europe who are conservatives, which really goes far beyond the refugee definition. And so you do have the world's greatest refugee program. It's been in place for 45 years that is essentially being replaced with an immigration program only for white people. And it is very notable that the admin is doing that while now also talking about third world countries and remigration and various other buzzwords that do indicate that they appear to be judging people based on where they come from.
Another buzzword is denaturalization, something we've never heard, right? You got naturalized and you were a citizen now. What does this mean, denaturalization? I mean, it was virtually unheard of. I mean, it certainly could have occurred in the past, but, circumstances, I guess if you committed a very bad crime, there were certain circumstances that you could lose your naturalization, but they're considering this for larger groups of people now?
Well, so denaturalization has been part of U.S. law for a very long time. But until now, it's been limited to very narrow circumstances, and specifically to people who committed fraud to get their citizenship. So people who were not eligible for citizenship but committed immigration fraud and got their citizenship that way. It is basically only in that circumstance, or if people commit treason, that you can lose your citizenship. Beyond that, naturalized citizens are treated identically to U.S. citizens. And the Trump administration, in its first term, as well as now in its second term, has talked a big game about denaturalization, about trying to target people who are U.S. citizens. But I think it's important for people not to worry too much, because despite everything that they are saying, the actual process of stripping someone from their citizenship is very difficult for the federal government to do, and with good reason, because citizenship is such a powerful part of who you are and what rights and protections that you get that the government cannot willy-nilly take it away. So it is possible the Trump administration will assign more federal prosecutors to make efforts to strip people of their citizenship, but every denaturalization case requires going in front of a federal judge and proving in court that that person committed fraud, and that is a lengthy and time-consuming process that means they cannot do it to large groups of people all at one time. They have to do it one person after another, and it takes time, energy, and resources. So I don't see that as a major tactic that the Trump administration will use.
Do you think the administration is just throwing this word out there as a scare tactic?
We have seen this administration often talk about things that never end up actually happening. For example, President Trump said about over a week ago that he was immediately ending temporary protected status for Somalia. That hasn't happened. In fact, there isn't anything that would permit the president to suddenly terminate temporary protected status for Somalia. And a week later, there's no indication the Department of Homeland Security is doing anything more than waiting until March when it's set to expire anyway. So we have seen this administration threaten denaturalization in the past. In Trump's first term, the Trump administration stood up something they called Operation Yanis, and Operation Yanis was aimed at denaturalization, and the result was, after 4 years, that they increased the number of denaturalization cases by about maybe 50 to 100 per year, which is very significant for those people, but it didn't have a broader impact on the 25 million people who are naturalized U.S. citizens.
Some of the latest actions that happened on Thanksgiving with this so-called third world ban, is your organization and others considering lawsuits or taking it to court to stop these actions?
I think right now we are waiting to see what is rhetoric and what is action. Because it's one thing for the Trump administration to say that they're going to do all of these things, and it's another for them to actually take those steps.
Obviously, it was triggered with the shooting of 2 National Guardsmen, which is a terrible crime, incident to have happened. Of course, is these types of actions in response too much?
I think the first thing that's important to say anytime we talk about a situation like this is that this was a tragedy. Sarah Beckstrom, the National Guard woman who was killed, appears to have been a wonderful person who had a full life ahead of her. And I believe the other National Guardsman who was shot is still pulling through in the hospital, and we're hoping that he manages to survive. But the actions of this gunman are ones that should be reviewed in the actions of what that person did, and not what tens of thousands of other people who have no relationship to this man other than having been born in the same country had to do with it. When we actually look at the situation, it would appear this man was vetted. He worked for the U.S. government for over a decade in Afghanistan. He worked for the CIA, involved in top secret missions, which required constant vetting. Before he came to the United States in 2021, he was vetted. In 2025, when the Trump administration granted him asylum, he was vetted. And all reports so far really do indicate that he was going through a mental health crisis, and his actions may have been the result of that, not some nefarious plot. This is why it is so important for politicians and policymakers to take a deep breath before reflexively changing policies or demonizing entire groups until we have all the facts on the ground. And right now, as the facts come in, this doesn't appear to be a vetting failure. This does appear to be more likely to be a mental health incident.
Right.
And that was Aaron Reichlin-Melnick of the American Immigration Council. Since that interview, the Trump administration did pause reviewing all pending applications for green cards, citizenship, or asylum from immigrants from 19 countries listed in a previous travel ban, including Somalia. And just recently, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem said that the Trump administration is planning to expand its travel ban to more than 30 countries in total. She told Laura Ingraham on Fox News recently that I won't be specific on the number, but it's over 30, and the president is continuing to evaluate countries. The Trump administration, as we said, has already banned travel from 19 countries it's deemed a security and public safety threat, including countries like Afghanistan, Cuba, the Republic of Congo, Haiti, Iran, Libya, Myanmar, Sierra Leone, Somalia, Venezuela, and Yemen. And speaking of Venezuela, we do have some breaking news to tell you about, and that is that the president says that the U.S. has seized an oil tanker near Venezuela. He said that earlier to reporters looking at this reporting from our partners up at The Hill. President Trump said Wednesday that the U.S. has seized an oil tanker off the coast of Venezuela, which is the latest escalation in what has become an increasingly tense relationship between the two countries. Trump told reporters, quote, "We've just seized a tanker on the coast of Venezuela, a large tanker, very large, and other things are happening." Now, the president did not provide additional details about that seizure. The U.S. has in recent weeks been building up its military presence near Venezuela, as we've reported here on Border Report Live and on BorderReport.com. And recently, Trump, in an interview published on Tuesday, did not rule out putting American boots on the ground in the South American country. And when asked if he wanted to see President Nicolás Maduro out of office, Trump told reporters at Politico, quote, "His days are numbered." This is a developing story, and we will have more for you as it comes either here in the next few minutes while we're still live on Border Report Live, and of course you can check for updates as always on BorderReport.com. Well, stay with us. We're going to take a very quick break, and when we come back, we're going to be checking in with our Salvador Rivera about San Diego's new Border Patrol chief. So stay with us. Border Report Live is back in 2 minutes. Welcome back to this edition of Border Report Live. The new head of the San Diego Border Patrol sector is very familiar with his new area of responsibility. As our Salvador Rivera tells us, Chief Justin De La Torre grew up in the area. Watch.
His name is Justin De La Torre. He's been with Border Patrol for well over 20 years and has deep connections and ties to San Diego. As recently as 4 years ago, Justin De La Torre ran the Imperial Beach Border Patrol Station. Since then, he's been the chief patrol agent in Tucson and Yuma. Now he's back home to lead the San Diego sector.
I started when I was 20 years old here in San Diego sector. To have the opportunity to come back here as the chief patrol agent and lead the men and women of this sector is a tremendous opportunity.
De La Torre officially took over last month. He says even though it's kind of slow right now in terms of apprehensions at the border, he and his agents remain active.
Right now we're averaging about 30 illegal entries a day that we are arresting. That's down 93% from last year. It's down much less from 2024, where we were averaging almost 900 people a day illegally entering. And so now our agents have the time to use our investigative capabilities and identify people who are in the country who got away from us in the past, or maybe who were released prior to the adjudication of their immigration proceedings. We're also able to patrol and interdict dangerous narcotics that are being smuggled into the United States. Just about every day, our agents are out there seizing loads of cocaine, fentanyl, meth, dangerous products that we do not want our kids having access to in this country.
De La Torre also addressed a potential opening of Friendship Park, saying it's not going to happen. This is an area near the ocean where up until 5 years ago, people from both countries could gather with the border barrier between them.
We are in a position now where we have to seal and secure the border from cross-border threats. It's not possible to allow people to come right up to a border fence where dangerous products can be passed back and forth between the fence and have border security at the same time.
One thing De La Torre says he will do is make sure agents in the San Diego sector have the resources to be successful in their jobs. Salvador Rivera, Border Report.
And a couple more headlines to get through before we end the program today. Firefighters in Juarez, Mexico have turned a station warehouse into a Santa's workshop. That's where fire crews are putting new wheels and hammering used bicycle parts back into place. The two worked alone because the rest of the elves, the members of the Juarez Fire Department, were sent out on an emergency mission to collect more donated toys. Since 1939, Juarez firefighters have played Santa to thousands of children of low-income families on Christmas Eve. The tradition of the Santa Claus Bombero, or firefighter Santa, as it's said in English, started when some kids approached the old main fire station in downtown Juarez to see if they had toys for them. The firefighters say they will wash stuffed animals, repair bikes, sort toys by age appropriateness, and for the gender that they were made. And Venezuelan opposition leader Maria Corina Machado's daughter has accepted the Nobel Peace Prize on her mother's mother's behalf. She said in a speech written by Machado that Venezuela shows the world we must be willing to fight for freedom. The chair of the Norwegian Nobel Committee told the award ceremony that Maria Corina Machado has done everything in her power to be able to attend the ceremony here today. He said that it was a journey in a situation of extreme danger. Her daughter said that Machado will never give up on attaining a free Venezuela and vowed that she will be back in Venezuela very, very soon. Before we go, we wanted to remind you to check out our partners at Political Power Ranker. It is a weekly show tracking the movers, shakers, and rule makers in American politics. Nextstar's Director of Political Content, Chris Bergen, Director of Emerson College Polling, Spencer Kimball, break down who's up and who's down in the world of politics based on data. And this week's Political Power Ranker episode focuses on some new polling in a very important state, that is the swing state of Ohio, both their Senate and governor's races. So make sure to look out for more on that. That's going to do it for us today. We'll see you next time.